Hello everyone, today we're making a new video about lists, tuples, and sets and what the differences there are between each of them. Let's make a shopping list. Our shopping list is going to have honey, bread, and steak. Good enough. So now if we print shopping list, it's going to say honey, bread, and steak. And similar to strings, you can put in these numbers here. If I were to press a 0 here, if this was a string, it would print out the first letter. So if this was a string, which it's not, then this is what a string looks like, right? Minus these things. So this would bring back an H. Oh, or doesn't, because it's a list. If I did this, this would bring back an H. Yeah, there you go. But because there's commas separating it, this is now a list. So it's going to bring back the first word. So let's just bring in the brackets again, just to specify that this really is a list, even though it seems like Python is implicitly believing it's a list already. But just for best practice, let's keep the brackets there to make sure that we know that this is a list. And just like the strings, we can do a 1, which means it's going to print out the 0, and it's going to stop right before the 1. So this is still only going to print out honey, but with the brackets. So if I do 2, then it's going to give me honey and bread. And if I take both of these out into a 0, or I just delete both, and I do a -1, then just like with the strings, it'll reverse it. So that's pretty cool. And by the way, the numbers that we're putting in this bracket is called an index. So the index of bread is 1, because that's the second one, and 1 is 2 in Python. So, all right. So there's something else we can do to this. We can add to the list. So we can do shopping list dot append, and append means kind of like attached to the end of it. And we can put in parentheses, and in our quote, we can put in cheese. So we're going to add cheese to the list. So now if we do print shopping list, it's going to do honey, bread, steak, and it's going to append to it the cheese, and then it's going to print it all out. Another way to add something to a list is by using insert. So if we do shopping list dot insert, then we can do 0 dash cheese. So this is saying that we're inserting it into the spot 0 where honey is, and it's going to be cheese. So that means cheese is going to get forced into the first spot and push honey forward. So that means if we hit play, it's going to say cheese, honey, bread, and steak. So here we go. If you append it, it puts cheese at the end. If you insert it into the 0 spot, then it puts cheese at the 0 spot. If we do 1 cheese, then it's going to put cheese in between honey and bread. And so on and so forth like that. What we can also do with this is we can add a separate shopping list. Shopping list 2. And shopping list 2 is going to have cereal and milk. So here we can put in insert shopping list 2, and then we're going to insert cheese. So it's going to insert all of this in between honey and bread, but it doesn't like cheese. I don't think you can do 2 things there. So just the shopping list 2. So now we've got honey, and then we've got cereal and milk from our second shopping list, and then we go back to our original shopping list, which is bread and steak. And if we wanted to add cheese, we could just do, we could even do shopping list 2. No, wait. We can do shopping list 2 dot insert, and then we could put cheese inside of our second shopping list if we still want to get cheese. And it doesn't like that. What if we do 0? Alright, that doesn't work. Anyways, I'm just kind of messing around and experimenting here. Another way that we can add the shopping list too is instead of doing insert, we can do extend. So if we hit play now, okay, I'm getting a completely different error now. I'm getting an error here. Invalid syntax. You know why? Because I just entered Python mode. What's going on here? Okay. There you go. I don't know what happened there. I just hit the trash can and I just reran it. I think what happened was I'm in PowerShell mode when I'm running these, and it runs this as Python. And then somehow I got into Python mode, which you can either reset this console, or another way to get out of it is just by typing quit with double parentheses, and then that quits out of it as well. Anyways, let's get back to it. Another thing that we can do with this is we can do shopping list dot remove, and we can remove a value from our shopping list. So these are values, by the way. This is the list, and this is the strings inside of it, which are the values. So if I hit play, it has removed honey. So the shopping list brings out honey, bread, steak. It extends it with shopping list 2, which is cereal and milk, and then it removes honey and prints it out. There's also another one called, and what pop did is, if you can see this, we're missing the milk. So it kind of pops off the end of your string. So if I kept doing pop over and over after the print, then it would just keep popping them off. And why that can be useful is if you have like a queue, or if you have like a list of things, like, you know, we're checking out 10, then we're checking out 8, then we're checking out 7, and we're just like going down the list of things to do, then we can use pop to like kind of take off the end. We can also do shopping list sort. You know what, let's just get rid of these for a second. So shopping list dot sort. And this alphabetically sorts it. So B comes before H. So we're going to do bread, honey, steak. It does the same thing with numbers. So if we do 1, 4, 8, 5, and we do numbers, number dot sort, and we do print numbers, hit play, then it's going to sort it 1, 4, 5, 7 instead of 1, 4, 7, 5. Or we can reverse them too. So we can do sort reverse equals true. And this one we could do sort reverse equals false. So this one, it's false for the reverse, so it's going forward. This one is true for the reverse, so it's going backwards sorting. We can also do some math here. So we can also do print sum of number. And then this gives us 17 because it adds the numbers together. So 1 plus 4 plus 7 plus 5 is 17. Another thing we could do is in print, we can do index. And in order to get the index out of shopping list, we actually have to type in shopping list dot index. And then in the index, we can type in honey. And it's saying that honey exists. And if we type in honey wrong, and we press enter, it just says honey spelled like this is not in the list. And another way we can do this is by typing in honey in shopping list. And it's saying true. There is a honey in shopping list. And if we misspell this, then it says false. This spelling of honey is not in shopping list. Or we can delete all this stuff, all the numbers, let's forget about this. Let's do an equation here. We can do for item in shopping list. And now item is a new word because we haven't defined that as a variable, but this is already a variable that's already set. And item in this case is string. So it's any of these strings in here. So that's just something that Python natively knows about. So if there's an item in shopping list, we can print item. And item is tied to any of these strings, so if we hit play, then, right. So for item in shopping list, then we need a semicolon here. Or is it a colon? Yeah, colon, not semicolon. Now we hit play, and then it just spits back steak, honey, and bread. So this is actually a for loop. You see how it spat it out 3 different times? That means it ran it 3 different times, and each time it gave back an item. So it gave us the first item, the second item, third item. There's also a term called enumerate, which brings back 2 items. So if we hit this, then enumerate is bringing back the place value of where honey is. So it's at 0, bread is at 1, steak is at 2. We can also do this option where we do shopping list equals join courses. Shopping list. Now let me show you what this does real quick. We have to print it first. Print shopping list. So this is separated. If I hash this code out, it's going to give me back the code. It's going to give me back the values in these brackets and the double quotes. And it kind of looks ugly. I kind of want my shopping list to be more human readable. So I'm going to hit play. And here it's separated by this. So we can separate it by dashes too. Like we can do it like this. And that's separated by dashes. We can separate it by and. So honey and bread and steak. So this whole section we talked about lists. Now we're going to talk about tuples. So now to take a look at tuples in lists. So lists are mutable and tuples are immutable. What does that mean? Well, first let's take a quick review at lists. A list has brackets containing a few values with our string in it. And we can have another variable referencing that same variable. And if we run this, this brings back, it takes the list and it takes list 2. We print out list 1 and we print out list 2. So list 2 is list 1 because list 2 is referencing list 1 in this variable assignment. So when we list just the cheese, so when we want to list something and we want to replace honey with cheese, then now we're just saying cheese, bread, steak, cheese, bread, steak. Because in a list, you can kind of pop out these variables, or you can pop out the values of the variables of which they're assigned to with another value. So we're popping out honey for the cheese, and then we're printing this back out. So now let's remove the, let's add line comments here, and then the tuple. So this is our shopping list, but let's rethink how we see this. This is our shopping tuple. This is the shopping list, but this down here, this isn't a shopping list. This is a shopping tuple. It's doing the same thing. So tuple 1 is assigned to these values. Tuple 2 is assigned to tuple 1. So if we hit play, we get an error. And we get the error after these two are printed out. See, we can still print them. We can still print tuple 1, and we can print tuple 2 referencing tuple 1. But when we try to change something in the values, we can't change it. And then it just gives us an error because it can't do it. The program doesn't work that way. So lists, you can modify the lists with these little command parameters of like popping things in and out. Different command parameters. But in a tuple, you can't change it doing that. It's static. So lists are more dynamic, tuples are static. So now let's talk about sets. What's a set? So we know that lists are used with brackets. So lists use brackets, and tuples use parentheses, and sets use braces. So if we're going to do shopping list, and stick in our shopping list there, and we type in print shopping list, we're going to press play, and we got honey, steak, and bread. Looks familiar, but wait a minute. We have honey, bread, and steak, so how can we put the steak between the honey and the bread? That's because we can press this play button as many times as we want, and it's going to give us a different order. So sets, unlike lists and tuples, doesn't care about the order. It's going to take all three of these values and just randomly spit them out, completely forgetting about what order you put them in. It doesn't care that honey is at 0, or bread is at 1, or steak's at 2. All it cares about is that there's values inside of it, and it's going to spit them out. So, a quick recap. If we have an empty list, this is defined by empty brackets. If we have an empty list, it's also defined by list and parentheses. If we have an empty tuple, we have empty parentheses, and then another way to define empty tuple is tuple parentheses. If we have sets, empty sets, one way to define them is open braces, and another way to define empty tuples or empty sets, and empty sets, a way to define them, the only way to define them that I know of, is set with open parentheses. This is not an empty set. This is a dictionary. And if you remember our previous video where we did something like print dot f, because a double braces is the things we used in F statements. They are dirs or directories. or not directories, dictionaries. So I hope you guys found some value in this video. I'd like to thank you for watching.